Hello students, welcome to today's newspaper analysis of the day. So we'll just quickly glance the newspaper. So important news like the same, the continuation of war and the affection and its effects to our energy sector. So and the new supreme leader. So Mustafa Khamenei, who is the son of the Ali Khamenei, who is killed by US. So he strongly tells he don't want to stop the war. Trump seriously want to stop the war. He thinks that his goals are achieved. The main objective of going to war with Iran was achieved, so he want to stop the war. But Iran is no way it want to stop the war. Now it is laying the sea mines in the Hormuz, Strait of Hormuz, and seizing the merchant ships. So it no way we can't see అంటే ఇంకా రానున్న రోజుల్లో ఇది ఆగుతుంది అంత త్వరగా అని మనం అనుకోలేం అంత ఈజీగా. So next, dedicated bus lanes. Yeah, this is some local news and important news of editorials. Today, the main editorial is about the innovation, the true innovation-led economy. How India is lacking the innovation-led economy, means innovation share in its economy. So we'll discuss that, why the innovation means innovation-led economy is very important for a country which is aspiring to be a global leader. And next article will discuss about the economic survey promises impact of new labor codes. So that we'll discuss. And there is one oil tanker successfully. It came from Gulf to India. That's a great news. And US begins probing the discriminatory trade policies against India. So now at the present 10% tariff rate is applying on India. So US want to recheck that whether we have to levy only 10% or more. So we'll also discuss, because that is very important, because why US is one of our top trade partner. And PTA, MEG. So these chemicals is very important for making the plastic yarn, polyyarn. Like the polyester clothes, like there are some clothes, there are two types, like usually cotton silk. Apart from the cotton silk from the natural fibers, there is also another artificial fibers, that is polyester fiber. So PTA and MEG is very important. That why this purified tetraphthalic acid and monoethylene glycol, these two are very important for making the plastic yarn or polyyarn. So those prices are also going to rise because of the impact of the West Asian war. So it means the textile sector is also going to get affected. So we'll also discuss, and this news is very important. The China passes a new law on ethnic unity and progress. Even the China is mostly dominated by one single ethnic race in China, that is Han ethnic. It's not like India, which have a very diverse kind of country. Though it has a diverse countries, but it only promotes the single race, that is Han Chinese. So the new law is passed to make there are 56 ethnic groups are there, and to make them more unified, means they will impose some kind of indirect measures of cultural measures. Even in the primary schools, they are going to make the Mandarin, that is a Chinese language, compulsory. So now the primary schools of all the places, like for example Uyghurs, Tibetans, and also even the Mongols, the inner Mongolia part of China, they have to read the Mandarin from the very primary age in the schools also. So this is how, and you can see here, the China passed a new law. So yeah, we'll discuss that also. So how these laws are passed in the China also we'll discuss. So starting from the first article, Iran targets just a minute. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry for the intervention, but yeah, this is the first article. The crude supply secure, no shortage of fuel. The ministers are in the even in the Lok Sabha, our energy minister, so Hardeep Singh Puri, he said that very strongly that we don't have any crude oil shortage. Why? Because we have a maintaining the strategic petroleum reserves. The strategic crude reserves for India is around how much? You know, around, so for 74 days, nearly more than 2 months, like we can, without any shortage, we can maintain the country without depending on others. The strategic petroleum reserves we have around for 74 days. So the government is strongly telling that even we couldn't see any rise in the petroleum prices. Maybe we are causing the crunch in the LPG cylinders. We can see that in a commercial basis, even now from today, the commercial cylinder is also going to released from the government. So that is what happening. But on the contrary to this, here we can see the new supreme leader of Iran. He strongly tells he want to continue the war. He want to continue the war. So that is one thing. And you see why even at these kind of situation. So now what India has done, India has diversified its energy imports. Diversification, how it is diversified? Even the Gulf itself, it is trying to stay away from this Strait of Hormuz, because as Iran is blocking this area, Strait of Hormuz, the United Arab Emirates already have its a pipeline surpassing the Strait of Hormuz. And even the Saudi Arabia, it is exporting its fuel from the Jeddah. So there is one Jeddah port here for Saudi Arabia, very important port in the Red Sea. So it is exporting its fuel. So it's no need to depend on this region. And and India diversified. India ఇప్పుడు ఎక్కడెక్కడి నుంచి కొంటుందంటే ఆయిల్ ఫ్రమ్ యుఎస్, ఆఫ్రికా, వెనిజువేలా, along with Iraq, Saudi, and UAE. But mostly these countries, it was diversified. So the impact of the West Asian war, it's want to minimize. But there is a problem with this gas, the liquefied natural gas and the liquefied petroleum gas. There is a problem with these two. But crude oil case, we don't have any issue as far as now, because we maintain a heavy crude oil reserves. So as you can see here, so already these are the crude oil reserves, the capacity of more than 5 million metric tons. 5 million metric tons, which calls for 9.5 days. 9.5 days, along with plus, and from the private companies, we have around 64 days. Nearly 64 days of nearly, which accumulates the nearly 74 days of strategic petroleum reserves. You know, as yesterday we discussed International Energy Agency. ఈ ఇంటర్నేషనల్ ఎనర్జీ ఏజెన్సీ ఏం చెప్పింది అంటే క్లియర్గా ఎనీ కంట్రీ షుడ్ మెయింటైన్ అట్లీస్ట్ ద స్ట్రాటజిక్ రిజర్వ్స్ ఫర్ 90 days. So we are very soon we are going to achieve this 90 days. In 90 days target ni very soon we want to achieve. So the next phase of crude oil storage capacities are already started under the construction, like 4 million metric tons in Odisha and 2.5 million metric tons in Padur, Karnataka. These are going to come. But for example, just imagine a scenario like already the crude oil price raised from almost now $120 per barrel. For example, if the Strait of Hormuz closed. So what is the impact? What is the impact on globe? We discuss both the impact on India and the impact on globe. ఇది జాగ్రత్తగా చూడండి. Impact on globe ఏమవుతుంది? Yesterday కూడా మనం we discussed a bit. So the global oil prices will increase. So Iran ఏం చెప్తుంది? Our main agenda is to make sure the oil prices hit $200 billion. And next, global oil prices rise అవుతాయి. Shipping prices. So imports and exports will also affected. Shipping prices will be affected. If these two comes, what will happen? The global inflation will come. The global inflation. This is very, very important. Throughout the globe, prapancham mottam kuda, the prices will skyrocket. And when it comes to the India, India's impact. What is the India's impact? The first impact will be India's impact. The first impact, so current account deficit, the CAD. What is this CAD? The current account deficit will increase. The current account deficit will increase. Why? Because, for example, like previously, if we buy the same quantity of oil for $100 billion, now for the same quantity of oil, we have to purchase for $150 billion. So this $50 billion gap, just an approximation. So this $50 billion gap, ఖచ్చితంగా అది మన కరెంట్ అకౌంట్ డెఫిసిట్ ని పెంచుతుంది. And if the current account deficit increases, what happens? It will impact on the rupee value. So rupee value impact అవుతుంది. So rupee rate, the rupee conversion rate to dollar will be too high. Like you have to give more rupees for one single dollar. So ఇంకా cumulative, ఇంకా ఈజీగా చెప్పాలి అంటే, you have to tell it more easily. For example, so ఇప్పుడు oil prices పెరుగుతున్నాయి కదా, the oil prices are increasing, and which will make the current account deficit increasing, and this current account deficit increases the rupee, and these depreciate the rupee. And if the rupee depreciate, what happens? Our imports will become more expensive. If the imports become more expensive, what happened to the Indian goods? Even the small things we have to buy the more price. If the more prices, the local goods also, even the vegetables, whatever grows in the locally also, their prices also will increase. And a domino effect, in the kind of a domino effect. Oil prices increase అయితే, సో డెఫినెట్గా కరెంట్ అకౌంట్ డెఫిసిట్ మనకి పెరుగుతుంది. అంటే వీ హ్యావ్ టు పే ఇన్ మోర్ డాలర్స్. మన దగ్గర డాలర్స్ ఉండాలి అంటే లైక్ వీ హ్యావ్ టు డూ మోర్ ట్రేడ్, అండ్ మోర్ ట్రేడ్ చేయాలి అంటే వీ హ్యావ్ టు సెల్ ద గూడ్స్ మచ్ చీపర్. అప్పుడే కదా మనం గూడ్స్ ఈజీగా వేరే వాళ్ళు కొనుక్కుంటారు. లైక్ ద పీపుల్ హూ గివ్స్ అస్ ద డాలర్, దెన్ ఓన్లీ విల్ గెట్ ద డాలర్. Otherwise, the current account deficit will increase. If the current account deficit will increase, but whatever the cases, rupee depreciation అనేది ఖచ్చితంగా జరుగుతుంది. ఇప్పుడు rupee depreciation జరిగితే, the imports, we have to pay more in rupees to get the imports. If we are paying more in rupees to get the imports, then definitely our local prices or the goods prices will also increase. Definitely, it will cause a inflation, cost push inflation to the India. So that is the simple crux of the article. And next, the half day schools from March, April. Why even though it is a regional news, why I added? Because the summers came early these days. So this time the summer came early, so the schools will be half-day schools, which means this climate change also impacting the education. So which means half-day schools means the academic hours will be reduced. If the academic hours are reduced, which means the academic quality also will be a little bit hit. Definitely it will be hit. And it will be more hit by the student, means children belong to the pillalaite, like they will affect more. So you can see how the climate change is hitting even the school education also. And they can't learn more and all. So next, this is the main editorial which we'll discuss about the innovation, and we can simply say innovation and Indian economy. So innovation-led economy ante enti? First asla innovation-led economy ante enti? Any economy, ఏ economy అయినా, so innovation, kind of ideas, innovative ideas and R&D. So if their economy, this innovation, so these ideas and R&D is a part of their economy, then that economy has a greater value in the future. Deep tech industries gani, best examples are Korea, US, Israel. These are the best examples of the innovation-led economies. The main issue was, the author is telling, even though manaki we have a huge number of IT services, we have a giant leap in the IT service, along with we have huge working force population, and huge export potential. But inni unna gani, so these are not creating the innovation-led economy. Innovation-led economy avvatledu ani clear ga author cheptunnaru. And the reason why he said was clearly because one of the main reason of GERD. So gross expenditure on R&D. So for example, US is investing 3.5% of GDP in R&D. And Israel, it is investing 5% plus 5% of GDP. And you see Korea, it's almost 4.8% of GDP. China, it is also investing nearly 3%, nearly 2.6% of GDP. And when it comes to the India, we are only investing 0.65% of GDP, which is seriously low comparing to any other major countries. If India want to be a major country, so it has to increase its GDP spending in R&D. Though India has brought some schemes. India elanti schemes teledu ani cheppatledu. India has brought some schemes like Atal Tinkering Labs. Ilanti schemes, alage Startup India. And even when it comes to the women schemes, women in science and engineering, so WISE scheme. And also deep tech fund, 1 lakh crore deep tech fund in kuda India kept aside. 1 lakh crore it has kept aside for deep tech funding. Ee deep tech ante enti ante, ee deep tech lo kanisam minimum 5 to 15 years they will do research before bringing any product into the market. Oka product ni deep ga research chesi at least 5 to 15 years teeskoni, and then they will come into the market. So India is not doing that. One of the main reason it quoted was, so the gap between academia and industry. ఇండస్ట్రీస్ కి అకాడమిక్ కి గ్యాప్ చాలా ఎక్కువ ఉంది అనేది క్లియర్ గా one of the reason. So the bridge connecting to the academia and industries is very weak in India as comparing to the other countries. Even in the innovation index law, mana place almost 38. Ante we are the 38th country in the world which is a innovation country. So this is a serious setback for India which want to grow as a major economic power. Okavela if it didn't clear this issue, if it didn't clear this issue forever, the article warns that India will remain as a cheap labor producing country, instead of our IT services or the service provider country, instead of value addition goods ni manufacture chese country kanna kuda ee cheap labor produce chese country leda IT services provide chese country gaane migilipotundi if India didn't concentrate on this innovation part anedi clear ga. So the author is warning. So ardhamaindi kada. So this is clearly preparing India for a true innovation-led economy. One of the reason was this. Even India is very good at IT services and huge working force population, export potential unna kuda innovation-led economy it was seriously down. So we have very less innovation hubs. Inka cheppalante, for example, Silicon Valley untundi US lo. So Silicon Valley or some kind of a Samsung city in Korea. So we have very less as compared to with these kind of innovation cities in India, and that's why our rank is also around 38. Even there are multiple patents are filing every year. So the filing of the patent rise from 50k to 1 lakh. But seriously, in this rise also, there are very small number of patents which is related to the deep tech, like the deep tech research in the sense, like for example AI, ChatGPT, these kind of the deep tech sectors low. So Indian participation అనేది direct participation అనేది చాలా తక్కువ ఉంది. So which will hamper our economy in the future. So that is one thing. So next important thing, economic survey promises the impact of new labor code. మనకు తెలుసు రీసెంట్ గా న్యూ లేబర్ కోడ్స్ వచ్చినాయి. అరౌండ్ 29 లేబర్ కోడ్స్ ని దే కోడిఫైడ్ ఇన్ టు ద 4 లేబర్ కోడ్స్. సో ఎకనామిక్ సర్వే ఏం చెప్పింది అంటే, ఎకనామిక్ సర్వే బికాస్ ఆఫ్ దిస్ చేంజింగ్ ఇన్ ద లేబర్ కోడ్స్ there will be 77 lakh new jobs will come, and by 2029 it will add nearly 1.5 or 1.7 nearly 1.5% of GDP ని ఇది ఎక్స్ట్రా యాడ్ చేస్తుంది అనేది కూడా చెప్పారు. అండ్ బట్ ద ఆథర్ హ్యాస్ సమ్ ఇష్యూ. ఆథర్ మెన్షన్ అయితే ఈ 4 న్యూ లాస్ లో దెర్ ఆర్ సమ్ ఇష్యూస్ ఆల్సో. ఆ ఇష్యూస్ ఏంటి అంటే, సో ప్రీవియస్లీ సో ఒక నేషనల్ ఫ్లోర్ వేజ్ అంటే ఒక సింగిల్ నేషనల్ ఫ్లోర్ వేజ్ అనే ఒక దాన్ని తీసుకొచ్చారు ఇప్పుడు. బట్ on what basis what are the determinants of this national floor age అనేది క్లియర్ గా చెప్పలేదు. అండ్ along with previously more than 100 members ఉంటాయి, more than 100 employees ఉంటే, so they have to get the permission. layoffs time లో వాళ్ళని తీసేయాలి అంటే they have to get the permission from the government. But now this increased to 300. సో దానివల్ల ఏమవుతుంది, సో layoffs అనేవి అంటే లైక్ ఆన్ ద డిస్క్రిప్షన్ ఇట్ విల్ ఇంక్రీజ్ అనేది. సో వన్ ఆఫ్ ద క్వశ్చన్ వాట్ ద ఆథర్ ఈస్ కన్సర్న్డ్. అండ్ అడిషనల్ టు దిస్ ఫ్లోర్ వేజ్ డిటర్మినెంట్స్ అనేవి క్లియర్ గా తెలియదు, అండ్ layoffs క్లియర్ గా పెరుగుతాయి. అండ్ అడిషనల్ టు దిస్ Inca, like if the rules are flexible now, the rules are flexible. If the rules are flexible, it takes the more employees. It takes the more employees. If the more employees has taken, then the protection of employees will be reduced. ఎక్కువ మందిని తీసుకుంటే the protection also కూడా తగ్గుతుంది అనేది one of the important. అంటే gig workers will increase. And more than that, ఇండియాలో nearly 80% of the population who are like a working population is in the informal sector. అంటే స్ట్రీట్ వెండర్స్, మనం చూసే కర్రీ పాయింట్స్, ఇవన్నీ కూడా చాలా ఇన్ఫార్మల్ సెక్టరే ఎక్కువ ఉంది. సో హౌ యూ కెన్ బ్రింగ్ ఆల్ దెమ్ ఇన్ ద అప్లై దెమ్ ద లేబర్ కోడ్స్? దట్ ఈస్ వన్ ఆఫ్ ద మేజర్ ఛాలెంజ్ వాట్ అదర్ ఈస్ టెలింగ్. వీళ్ళందరినీ ఈ లేబర్ కోడ్స్ అప్లై అయ్యేటట్టు ఎలా తీసుకురావాలి? వన్ ఆఫ్ ద ఛాలెంజ్. నేషనల్ ఫ్లోర్ వేజ్ డిటర్మైన్ చేశారు. అండ్ ఇట్ ఆల్సో ఆల్టర్స్ విత్ ద స్టేట్స్ కూడా దే కెన్ మేక్ దేర్ ఓన్ లాస్. అండ్ ఆల్సో ద లే ఆఫ్స్, the number of layoffs will be increased. So ఇదివరకు more than 100 members ఉన్న కంపెనీలో లే ఆఫ్స్ చేయాలి అంటే they have to consult the government, they have to take the permission from the government. Now it was increased to 300 members. And if the laws are becoming the flexible, the more employees the companies will take. If the companies will take more employees, the protection of the employees get down. So that's why seriously the country has to balance between flexibility and protection of workers. వీటి మధ్య, so it has to make a balance between the flexibility and the protection of worker అనేది what the author is implying. So next, US begins the discriminatory trade policies against India. US begins the discriminatory trade policies against India. Recently, so the tariffs anni poi 10% base tariffs anni countries, almost anni countries mida for 150 days. This is what they are implementing. But now enti ante, so India ki US ki there is a wide trade deficit. Nearly $58 billion trade deficit undi manaki, and the trade favors India. So which means Indian exports, so India exporting more to US than the US exporting to India. US exporting India kanna India exporting to India ne chala ekkuva. So there are huge trade deficit in the favor of India. So now whenever the country is having a huge trade deficit, then automatically it comes into the radar of US. So United States Trade Representative ఈ కమిషన్ ఏం చేస్తుంది అంటే they will analyze this country's huge trade deficit. ఇండియా కూడా ఇప్పుడు 3 parameters లో they want to analyze this in the 3 parameters. And what are the 3 parameters? They want to check whether India is providing any trade concessions, whether India providing any trade concessions ఏమన్నా ప్రొవైడ్ చేస్తుందా from the government side. From the government side. And second, these companies are producing more than what they need. Companies are production, like the steel companies gani or any other companies, steel or kind of other manufacturing companies, the company's production is more than what they need. అంటే ఒక కంట్రీకి ఇండియాకి కావాల్సిన దానికన్నా ఎంత ఎక్కువ దే ఆర్ ప్రొడ్యూసింగ్. అండ్ థర్డ్ వన్ ఈజ్ ఎనీ ఆఫ్ ద ఇండియన్ పాలసీస్ ఈజ్ ఎఫెక్టింగ్ ద యుఎస్ కంపెనీస్. ఎనీ అన్ఫెయిర్ ప్రాక్టీసెస్ ఉన్నాయా విచ్ ఈజ్ డిక్రీజింగ్ ద ఇంపోర్ట్స్ ఫ్రమ్ ద యుఎస్ కంపెనీస్. అండ్ సో యుఎస్ కంపెనీస్ నుంచి ఇంపోర్ట్స్ని డిక్రీజ్ చేసే ఏవైనా అన్ఫెయిర్ ప్రాక్టీసెస్ ఇండియా ఫాలో అవుతుందా అనే ఈ 3 base parameters మీద they are going to take action. If in these 3 base parameters, if India India came under these 3 parameters, what they will happen? So they can increase the import taxes. ఇప్పుడు 10% ఉంది కదండి, ఈ 10% ని they will make sure to increase at least nearly more than 10% for sure. So this is not a good news for our exporters. So next, ఈ ఆర్టికల్లో ద మోస్ట్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ థింగ్స్ ఈజ్, ఈ ఆర్టికల్ అంతా ఇంపార్టెంట్ కాదు, బట్ దీస్ 2 థింగ్స్ ఇవేంటి అంటే దీస్ ఆర్ ద ఫేవరెట్ టెర్మినాలజీస్ ఫర్ యూపీఎస్సి ఎగ్జామ్స్ లో. ఈ ప్యూరిఫైడ్ టెరాప్థలిక్ యాసిడ్, ఈ ప్యూరిఫైడ్ టెరాప్థలిక్ యాసిడ్ అండ్ మోనోఇథిలైన్ గ్లైకాల్, monoethylene glycol. ఈ monoethylene glycol, ఈ purified terephthalic acid, these are very important because they make the plastic, ఇప్పుడు మన పాలియస్టర్ క్లోత్స్ ఉన్నాయి కదా, మన షర్ట్లో కానీ ఈవెన్ ఎవ్రీథింగ్ వీ హ్యావ్ సమ్ పార్ట్ ఆఫ్ పాలియస్టర్, అండ్ సమ్ షర్ట్స్ అండ్ అపారల్స్ ఆర్ కంప్లీట్లీ మేడ్ విత్ పాలియస్టర్ యాన్. మన స్పోర్ట్స్ షర్ట్స్ ఇవన్నీ కూడా ఎస్పెషలీ, అండ్ ది మెయిన్ రా మెటీరియల్ ఈస్ దీస్ 2, PTA and MEG. And due to the oil prices, as they are the polymers, polyester కాబట్టి they make from the crude oil. ఇవి రెండు కూడా crude oil నుంచి మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చర్ చేస్తారు, and the crude oil prices are hit, so those prices are also increasing, which means our textile prices also will increase. But these 2 important means chemicals are very important in the perspective of UPSC. So in the next article we'll see, very important article. The China passes new law on ethnic unity and progress. National People Congress. మనకి లోక్సభ ఎలాగో, లైక్ ద పార్లమెంట్ ఎలాగో, లోక్సభ రాజ్యసభ ఎలాగో, చైనాకి ఈ నేషనల్ పీపుల్ కాంగ్రెస్ అలాగే. వెన్ ద నేషనల్ పీపుల్ కాంగ్రెస్ ఓట్స్ అండ్ బేస్డ్ ఆన్ ద మెజారిటీ ద లా విల్ పాస్. అంతా బాగానే ఉంది, లైక్ ఈవెన్ దే హ్యావ్ ద పార్లమెంట్. వై దెర్ ఇస్ ద ఇష్యూ అంటే, because it's having only the single party, all the members comes from a single party. But usually the real discussion won't happen in the National People Congress. The discussion happens in the next layer, the upper layer of this National People Congress kanna mundu, the seniors of the party, so including the Chinese leaders and all, so Chinese president villandaru kuda, they will take the actions in the senior, and they will send that bill draft to the National People Congress, and National People Congress definitely they will say yes. That's why the Chinese National People Congress are called the rubber stamp parliament. దానికి actual real powers ఏం ఉండవు. They don't really discuss like how our parliament, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, they do. They just accept whatever the seniors send. And even in this bill lo kuda nearly 2,749 members they say yes, and 0 members they say no. So you can see that is the classical case of a rubber stamp parliament. ఒక రబ్బర్ స్టాంప్ పార్లమెంట్ కి ఇది ఒక క్లాసిక్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ అనమాట. కానీ వెన్ ఇట్ కమ్స్ టు దిస్ న్యూ లా, హౌ ఇట్ గోయింగ్ టు ఎఫెక్ట్ అంటే, సో చైనాలో ఆల్మోస్ట్ 54 ethnic groups ఉన్నాయి. 54 ethnic groups are there. In these 54, the Han Chinese వీళ్ళొక్కళ్ళే 90%. అంటే if you take 150 billions, 150 కోట్ల చైనీస్ జనాభాలో, సో ఎక్సెప్ట్ 15 కోట్ల మంది కాకుండా మిగతా అందరూ కూడా ఒక సింగిల్ ఎథనిక్ గ్రూప్ కి చెందిన వాళ్ళే. అయితే ఈ న్యూ లా ఏంటి అంటే, ఈ మిగతా ఉన్న ఈ 54 ఎథనిక్ గ్రూప్స్ ని దే వాంట్ టు మోర్ ఇంటిగ్రేట్ ఇన్ టు నేషన్. సో నేషనల్ ఇంటిగ్రేషన్, సో విచ్ మీన్స్ ద డైవర్సిటీ అనేది లేకుండా చేయటానికే ఇలాంటి లాస్ తీసుకొచ్చారు అనేది చాలా మంది పొలిటికల్ అనలిస్ట్ దే ఆర్ టెలింగ్. నేషనల్ ఇంటిగ్రేషన్ అనే పేరుతో దే బ్రాట్ దిస్ లా అండ్ దే ఆర్ ఇంపోజింగ్ ద Mandarin education also at very primary ages. ఇదివరకు ప్రైమరీ ఏజెస్ లో, సో దే కెన్ learn their primary education law, they can learn their own local language. But even including the primary education, so now the Mandarin is compulsory. And especially the people who are going to affect the Tibetans and Xinjiang, Uyghur Muslims, and Inner Mongolia people, వీళ్ళందరూ కూడా దీని ద్వారా ఎఫెక్ట్ అయ్యే వాళ్ళే. సో విచ్ మీన్స్ చైనా సింపుల్గా చెప్పాలంటే చైనా ఈస్ బికమింగ్ లెస్ డైవర్స్ అంటే ఇంకా డైవర్సిటీ అనేది చాలా తక్కువ అయిపోతుంది చైనాలో. స్లోలీ దే వాంట్ టు ఎసిమిలేట్ దెమ్ ఇన్ టు ద హాన్ చైనీస్. సో స్లోగా సో దే విల్ లూజ్ దేర్ ఒరిజినల్ ఐడెంటిటీ, which is a classical case when it comes to the single party system, which don't have a democracy, non-democratic governments law. One of the side effects is this. Okay, thank you. These are the articles for today, and we'll meet you tomorrow. Yeah.